Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a live SocialFlight Live. Thanks for coming out this morning.
Good morning.
There we go. Oh, we're gonna have some fun. We're just gonna do some hangar flying here, and say hi to Jason Miller of the Finer Points.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
How awesome was it I was able to wrangle him in and be able to pick his brain about a bunch of things here. I'm a huge fan, Jason.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So one of the things, we titled our presentation today all about like life, laughter, lessons, all these kind of things, because we talk about a lot of serious subjects. We talk about aircraft, things that go wrong, things that people need to learn from, I think, in many ways, tips for people. But we also come across some wacky stuff.
Indeed we do. It's a serious endeavor. So like you said, often the conversation leads to serious matters. But there's definitely a lot of humor along the way, for sure.
So I'm gonna tell you about one that happened on my way to Oshkosh to kick things off here.
Okay.
I was flying in, one of the places that I go on the way out is Rome Griffiths Airport. And I don't think I'm turning anybody in by saying this, so I'm not this isn't gonna come across where anyone's gonna be outed. But I was flying into here, and it's a towered airport on the way in. And as I was coming, there was someone who was calling in on the radio. My guess is a student or something, towered airport. And it was, all of a sudden I got this radio call. Now I'm coming into the pattern, following their instructions on the way in. I get this radio call from someone that says, Griffiths Tower, this is, Cessna November, blah, 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 blah. I am 8 miles to the left of the airport, inbound. And so the tower, you could hear him pause for a second and said, Cessna, ABCD, could you repeat your position again? And he's like, yeah, I'm now 7 miles to the left of the airport.
They needed to ask him if he was in track up or north up. That would have solved everything, right?
Well, so this continued. This wasn't just a one-thing thing. He said, I'm going to need a cardinal position for where you're actually located relative to the airport. He says, it is to the left, and I'm now 6. Can you give me an idea whether you want me to go over? So literally this went on and on until he was coached all the way in. And I believe that the instructions they actually gave him are, when you get here, continue making left turns into the pattern, and we only have one runway.
This is definitely a symptom of the moving map world, right? Before moving maps, you could never say I'm left of the airport. So
that's a good point. Yeah, you couldn't say that.
Yeah, you never could. You can't look at a VOR and say I'm left of the airport.
So tell me, give me an example of some of the stuff that you've come across.
Oh gosh, well. There's a good one from, I used to work at Palwaukee Airport before it was Chicago Executive. You guys know Palwaukee? And one morning it was low IFR. It was just, 800 overcast, something like that. And there was an airplane trying to get into the airport. I like this humorous story because it helps you remember something. So the pilot was saying to the tower, I want to come inbound. And the tower said, well, the field's IFR, sir, say your intentions. And he said, well, my intention is to land at the airport today. I really want to try to get in there. And the tower's like, well, I'm not sure what you're asking me. The field's IFR at this time. Say your intentions. And this went on for a little while before the tower finally said to the guy, sir, perhaps there's something special I could do for you. And I was like, oh, special VFR. I need a special VFR clearance to get in there. So that one helps me and my students remember special VFR all the time.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's a really good one.
Yeah, they're legally not allowed to offer it, right? So the tower can't say to the pilot, would you like special VFR? That would be illegal. So he had to kind of say, is there something special I can do for you? Yeah.
I had a maintenance one recently that was funny. I do a lot of maintenance kind of consulting work, helping people out with their aircraft, and a lot of that involves boroscope inspections and helping people see what's going on with your valves, what's going on with all these other things. And so it's back and forth with someone that was sending me boroscope images, trying to see if there was a problem with the valve in their cylinder. And every time I got a picture from them, it was like a half of it or a quarter of it or there's a side or like whatever else, like no matter what. So we keep going back and forth. I'm like, can you get me one that's just like straight on so I can tell you what's going on with this? And it sends me another one.
Real quick, for those of us that don't know exactly, what is a boroscope?
Okay, so boroscope is a tool that allows you, it's got a long kind of like, it's either rigid or flexible. You can put it into a spark plug hole, and while, without having to pull your whole engine apart, you can get in there, turn around, and see what's going on inside the cylinders especially, and also in other tight spaces or things like that. Like if you drop a pen in an aircraft and you have to find it somehow. Or a flashlight.
You can use a boroscope.
You can use a boroscope.
Interesting. Okay.
Once you have them, use them for all sorts of crazy stuff.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
But excellent question. Very good. Buy one. Every owner should own a boroscope. Just saying. With what you spend to go flying, like the cheapest boroscope, you can get really cheap ones that are pretty not that great for less than $100. But if you spend $200-300 on something, then it's going to pay itself off 500 times over. It's really worth doing. So it's this way you can snake in through that spark plug hole, turn around, get pictures of things, and send to folks like me that can help tell you, is that healthy? Should you do something about it? Everything else. So we're going back and forth for about, 5, 6, 7, 10 emails of trying to get all of this stuff. And then he finally sends me this volume of basically, we're both frustrated, and so he sends me, 20 pictures. One of these 20 is going to be what you need, Jeff. You're going to be able to help me out. So I'm going like 1, 2, 3, nope, yeah, 4, 5, oh, we're getting closer, oh, we're getting closer. Get to the very end of it, and it's a picture all the way out. Well, the cylinder's on the bench.
So you mean he didn't need a boroscope at all? Is that the...
he could have taken his phone and just sat there and said, I'm like, did you take your cylinder off? He's like, yeah, it was already off. I was just trying to figure out what's going on with this valve.
I guess you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
No, I'm a brand new airplane owner, so it's interesting. Your ears perk up a little different when you own an airplane. When mechanics, before you own an airplane, people talk maintenance. You're kind of like, oh, that's what the shop does when I take the plane in.
All you have to worry about is emergencies in that case?
Yeah, emergencies are turning in and say the thing's broke.
Yeah. You just have to know your best glide speed.
Yeah. Call me when it's fixed, But when you own a plane, all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's preventative maintenance. There's actually sending your oil in for analysis. There's caring about the engine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of oil. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this right now. Here's a life lesson for everybody who owns an aircraft out there or even buys oil for an aircraft or anything like that. This is for real. Multi-weight oil for your aircraft, please.
Okay, so multi-weight, like 15W50 is a multi-weight?
20W50, please, Phillips. XC 20W50.
Okay.
It's actually better for a bunch of reasons, but I'll tell you that.
20W50, okay.
Yes.
And you thought you were going to pick my brain.
Exactly. I thought you would guess.
Yeah.
Who here has heard the tale and thinks that straight weight oils help cling to parts better and helps keep your aircraft better if you're in a stable climate? You don't worry about that. Yeah, I've seen a few hands go up about that. I had the very, very fun privilege of getting to spend time both at the Aeroshell Technical Facility, see how all the oil is made and tested, and at the Phillips, with the Phillips folks, about all of the lab testing that's been done. And some really fascinating stuff. It's amazing. We live in an industry, enjoy an industry, right?
Live it and breathe
it.
Yeah.
There are all of these myths that just hang around forever that people do. And I'm going to ask you about yours next. What it is people get told by flight instructors, by mechanics, what the mechanics tell other mechanics about this stuff. Well, one of the big ones is straight weight oils. And the dirty little secret out there is that straight weight oils are sold by big petroleum companies because people ask for straight weight oils because they were told that. But the reality is that I saw all the testing data, all the examples that they did, that these multi-weight oils that they're selling are better in every single possible way you can imagine. I mean, better for whatever climate, they're better for corrosion. It actually lasts on parts longer and prevents corrosion than a straight weight does. So very, very kind of cool thing to know about that.
Yeah.
Definitely something to do.
Yeah.
But a funny question I get, having to do with it is Marvel Mystery Oil. Who's heard of that stuff? Right? Please, I'm not going to ask to raise hands because the biggest debates I get in with people are never about regular certified oils. It's always the person that says, yes, but I want to use Marvel Mystery Oil. I say, have you ever looked up what's in this unapproved FAA chemical that people want to put in there because somehow it will help whatever problem that they're having in it? Has anyone ever looked up what's actually in it if you do the digging? Okay, so it's mineral oil, or mineral spirit. It is, or mineral oil, Stoddard solvent, lard, okay, perfume, and red dye.
Wow.
But it's going to keep them from having to spend money on a mechanic and getting an overhaul on theory.
Wow. Can you just switch the weight of an oil? Like if you've been using 15W50, when you say if I should go to 20W, I would just do an oil change and start with the new oil?
Absolutely. Yeah, all oils are meant to, they all have to have a compatibility standard. So not only can you switch, but there isn't actually any kind of safety of flight or longevity of your engine issue. If you happen to be off your home airport, you usually use Phillips XC20W50, let's say, and then someone says, well, we only have straight weight, or we only have their Victory oil. Yeah, you can always.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the stuff on my side of the table as a flight instructor, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm a career flight instructor. I've been teaching flying for over 20 years out in the Bay Area of California, up near Lake Tahoe. And for me, it's a lot of little minutia, little things like the idle check, for example. Or when people get to the run-up area and they want to turn the master switch off so that they can see the ammeter needle flick, you know? or they don't want to turn the strobe lights on until they take the runway during the day. You know, these are just little things that I think are like tribal knowledge, you know, and just to kind of break those down. With the idle check, you know, I don't know how many folks do an idle check in the run-up area, but I've been on interviews at flight schools with the chief pilot where they pull the power to idle and the engine dies. And then he just fires it up again, and there we go. So it's like you start thinking, what exactly are we looking for right there? Because at any forward flying speed, right, at any best glide speed, the wind is going to be moving the propeller faster than it will be if you just pull the power to idle in the run-up area. So are we testing to see if it can run at 400 or 500 RPM? And if so, why? Why are we testing that, you know? So just in people doing things that they haven't really thought through. There's a lot of that, little like minor things in flight training. But to bring it to a more serious point, and this is something you have opened my eyes to, we all learned that electrical systems are not connected to engines. I mean, to the actual operation of the engine. We're told that if the alternator fails, then the engine should run just fine. We talk about magnetos. We bring this up a lot in flight training. And it wasn't until the conversation I had with you last week about geared alternator systems that I learned that, in fact, in certain engines, alternator failure can, in fact, potentially lead to an engine failure.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a case study on Thursday at 1 p.m.
Okay, come back on Thursday for that one.
But yeah, it is absolutely true that, you know, we're taught to believe that there's no connection between the electrical system and the engine running, right? Like, the battery dies, we always tell our passengers that. Check this out, if the battery dies, the plane keeps going. Look at this, and it's got dual mags, and all these reasons not to worry. But there are exceptions to that rule for types of failures that do connect those two systems together.
Yeah, right. And so for me, it's a lot of, you know, asking students why. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And if there's a good answer, even if I'm wrong, I'll say, wow, okay, I just learned something. We'll bracket toward perfection. I'll modify the way I teach it. But there are definitely a dozen or so things people do in airplanes that they only do because their instructor told them to do it, and they really have no idea why. And sometimes it doesn't matter.
True. Well, I got a question for you. I got a couple questions having to do with my flight out here to Oshkosh. Came in IFR and all sorts of weather. I don't know if anyone else came in on Saturday, but it was challenging, as we say in that world, for IFR to get in. Is that the best way to say something that worked out fine?
Indeed, yeah.
It was challenging?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So there was a lot of discussion going on about strategy on the frequency when you do that. And I remember at one point, as I was calling and trying to work out, you know, do this or go to the left or whatever is going to, get me around these cells and stuff. As I'm talking, all of a sudden the radio stopped and the alert came on the Avidyne that said stuck mic. Does that mean I'm talking too long?
Stuck mic, oh God. You just reminded me of my early years of flight instruction. I had a colleague who, he had a stuck mic, and he didn't know that whatever the system was in the airplane for the stuck mic, it had an alert, so it would like beep, 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 like it would beep at you. And there we are on a NorCal frequency, and I'm trying to call inbound. It's busy airspace. It's like Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose. It's some of the busiest airspace in the United States. And instead of being able to call in, I hear my friend Jeff going, okay, that one was good, let's try one to the left. Okay, we're gonna do a steep turn to the left. And he's doing his flight lesson on the NorCal frequency. And every now and again, you can hear that beeping, and he goes, what is that beeping? Do you know what that beeping is? Well, anyway, don't worry about it. All right, let's do some slow flight. For 45 minutes, he did a flight lesson on the NorCal frequency. So, for anybody that doesn't know, there is a stuck mic alert apparently on Avidyne. You can see it.
It'll come right on your screen. It actually turns off your transmission. They actually came back and said, oh, your transmission was cut off. And I came back to them, and if you go, you probably can even hear this thing. It was Great Lakes Approach. I came back to them and I said, yeah, I think I got a little wordy on that one.
Wow.
I have done that, by the way, before. I was going into Nantucket once, many years ago, with some friends, and you're in that really great mood, and you're feeling like Joe Pilot, and they've never gone on a plane before. And so what do? You do the pilot talk, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Yansky, we're beginning our descent into the Nantucket airport now. Weather on the ground is breezy, 75 degrees, right?
That's pretty good.
Instinctively, had the mic pushed the entire time.
Oh no. Can I find that on Live ATC? What was the date?
And so two things happened, of course. As soon as I finished that entire thing and realized, then I let go of the mic. The first thing that happened is I heard Nantucket Tower calling to everyone that they had been waiting to get in touch with in rapid succession, like, Cessna, Citation 5, you're clear to land, like everything. And then after that, laughing their butt off, they said, 898 Juliet Bravo, welcome to Nantucket.
I think you have a stuck mic. Wow. Well, you definitely see a lot.
I do have another question for you for my trip out here. And this is sort of a serious one. Again, it was IFR, IMC, and on one hand, they locked down the system coming out here in a way that's way beyond normal, right? You have to have an IFR reservation if you're going to get in here. You have to confirm your reservation. You have to only file certain routes that are there, like everything, right? And I did that. And in the NOTAM, they say from the east, file either this or this. Like they give you options. Mm-hmm. So I go and I file option A, let's say, that went through this whole thing. Two weird things happened to me as I was getting ready to depart out of Michigan to come here. And the first one was they gave me my clearance. And they said, blah, 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 everything else. They just said, cleared as filed. And I thought, well, okay. That was pretty cool. And then I don't know why, but a little light went off in my head and said, confirm that. So I said, okay, so we're runway heading, and then direct this, and then this, and then this. And he comes back and he goes, no, that's not what you're cleared. You're cleared this. I said, well, I have a printout right here. This is what I filed. And he goes, well, you're cleared as filed for what we did. And we gave you this routing. So if I hadn't asked, I would have gone and immediately headed towards a different destination.
Right.
Even though I had that little Lighthouse confirmation that says this is exactly what you filed. What's the story with that?
Gosh, I don't know. That sounds like a question for an air traffic controller. But no, honestly, I think you should go. There's so many people here. It's one of the beautiful things about this show. We can find out specifically what happened, but it sounds to me, if I had to guess, like they changed your plan, and then they filed it for you. They looked at it, modified it at what it needed to be, and then filed it.
Yeah, I wonder
But
if they
that
tell
doesn't
you if
make
it's-
sense, really. I mean, I think you need to take
I
it
think
above
they
my
had
head.
their routing, and then that was there. But there must be a footnote. I'm going to go ask those guys over at the ATC Center. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they're all
Well-
hanging out there and just drinking.
Yeah, and to explore it a little more, like if you use ForeFlight to file, right, it tells you your expected route.
Yep.
So it'll say file and then say expected route, and then every now and again you get the notification that says there's been a change to your expected route, right? Like what's happening there?
Yeah.
It seems like a similar thing.
Well, I got the other thing that was really strange, and maybe these things were coupled. Maybe I got, the controller's, cousin instead or whatever that was working while he was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, usually you're cleared, you're cleared for takeoff, if not off by this time, if not blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And he just said, clear for takeoff, no void time, no. It's like, you ready to go now? It's like, okay, clear for takeoff.
Wow, and you're leaving a non-towered airport and you were talking to a TRACON facility?
Yes, on the phone.
Wow, I've never had that happen.
Non-tower trick. I think
Yeah.
maybe I dialed someone else.
No, I mean, maybe he made a legitimate mistake, I don't know. There's always an EFC time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go in. You
it was
can't go in and
implied.
use the bathroom and come back out in 20 minutes and take off, right? I mean, your clearance is void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your? What else have you heard about trips or anything else you can kind of chime in about with your funny stuff or with anything else lessons?
Funny stuff. I have a funny story about flying. Funny enough, it was the same guy that had the stuck mic, and don't worry, he flies for JetBlue now, so you probably won't encounter him anywhere. But he was aggressive as a young flight instructor. Lots of students, instrument students, private students, and he had 2 private students going up for a check ride on the same day. And he left out of Oakland, and he was up in Santa Rosa, for anybody who knows the area, and he was up there all day because they ran 2 private check rides. And while he was gone, horrible weather moved in. I mean, horrible, like one of the worst storms of the winter. The storm was so bad that they closed the bridge to road traffic. All the bridges were closed because of the winds. You couldn't drive your car on any of the bridges. And I had remembered that he had said to me, hey, Jason, let's go fly some IMC sometime. He felt uncomfortable about flying in the clouds, and he said, let's go do some IMC time. And at the time, I was in young CFI. I was living on my boat in Berkeley. And I remember I'm on my boat, and winds are rocking the boat in the harbor. So even though we're in the harbor, the boat's rocking around. My grandmother's lamp fell off and shattered. I remember this is it was bad weather. And it made me think of Jeff. So I called him.
Not this Jeff.
No, not you. The guy that of the fame, the stuck mic guy. And it made me think of him because he'd been asking us to go fly IMC. So I called his phone. I had no idea he was up doing check rides. And of course, I got his voicemail. And I said to him on the message, I said, hey, Jeff, this weather obviously is too bad to go flying, but it got me thinking about what you said. And yeah, we should go do some IMC time. When the weather calms down a little bit, we'll go up and we'll get some time in the clouds. So time goes on. Somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock that night, he calls me. And you could almost feel his knees shaking on the phone. He said, dude, I almost died tonight. I almost died. I almost killed my students. We came back. I had to file IFR. There was lightning, flew through thunderstorms. And, when I landed at Oakland, I had to land in this crazy crab angle. I almost crashed a plane. I mean, it was a real mark on his flying experience. He was never going to make that mistake again. He was terrified, and so were his students, who both passed the check ride, by the way. So you think the story's over, and I think, man, Jeff, you're lucky. Don't ever do that again. You should have some clear no-goes. We'll go up and we'll work that out for you when the weather's good. So the next day I go into the airport to meet my student, and my student just happens to come in and he says, did you see the weather last night? And I said, yeah, it was pretty bad. He goes, you're telling me? He said, I was coming in on a Southwest jet to Oakland, and we were crabbed so hard I could see the runway out the side window of the jet. He's like, it was incredible last night. And he said, on the way out the door, I said to the captain of the Southwest plane, I said, you guys are crazy for flying on a night like this. And the captain says, you think we're crazy? some kid's out there in a Warrior. So I told Jeff, you're famous now. They know who you are.
Yeah, life lessons for that. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you on a sort of a serious note on whether, we learn, especially we're here at AOPA, learn from AOPA. I learned from flying about that. You tell some fantastic stories about life lessons and learning from things. I've discovered something relatively recent. I know from the gray hair, it looks like I've only been flying about 6 months, but you're always taught about like the no-go, the get-home-itis, the other things about that, and it seems like I have that in my head for decades of like, don't make this mistake, don't learn something, whatever. And the stress of do you go, do you not go, especially when you gotta get home, right?
Yeah.
And I had an experience, or I was up at Laconia, New Hampshire, had flown up there. There's this really cool venue where you can land there, you can walk to a concert, you can come back, and I had gone with another couple. And we did that, and then afterwards, as we were coming back, ready to fly, it's nighttime. And as opposed to what the forecast said, it was rapidly changing. And it wasn't rain, it was visibility and fog and mist. And I was like, I looked at it and it was like, oh, now I'm not flying into an airport, by the way, that's a little black hole at night. It's not like some, big lit up ILS runway airport.
Right.
And I watched, and at first it was like 5 miles. And I'm like, yeah, 5 miles at night into a little black hole airport doesn't look good. And then I'm sort of still debating it in my head. Everyone's like, we're going back, right? Like, so it's only a 30-minute flight. And then it's down to like 4 miles, and it's down to like 3 miles. And I'm like, this isn't going well. Well, I just made the call and said, we're not going back. Sorry guys, we're gonna have to find a hotel somehow, somewhere. We're not, like, big surprise. I know it was bragging on the way up that it only took us 15, 20, 30 minutes to get here. But you're not going home tonight. Welcome to General Aviation. And made that really, really tough call. We went there, found a place to stay, ended up having fun, and then the next morning, when I go back to the airport, find out that a Warrior had tried to get in that night at that airport we were going to depart from, and the pilot had crashed and passed away.
Oh, man.
In that exact weather. And that was a more impactful lesson to me about making good decisions than I think anything else I'd done.
Yeah.
Because it was actually the confirmation of a flight I didn't take. The one time I could say I did the right thing and was scared. Like, I've done a million situations in decades of flying that you look at and you're like, oh, I learned from flying by doing something stupid and living. Like, how many people here can raise their hand and say they've done something that they don't wish they hadn't done and learned from somewhere in that? I think to me the lesson was learning from making a good decision was surprisingly impactful.
Yeah, there's so much in what you just said. I mean, there's
so unpack that for me, and I'm going to sit back.
Well, there's that side of it, but it also makes me wonder, what if you had tried it and gotten in? So a lot of people say, like, had you done that, a lot of people go down this road of going, okay, now I know my minimums are a little lower, right? Now I can get into an airport that's 4 miles visibility, or it's not that big of a deal. I've done this before, and you start normalizing that deviance. That's how it works for most people, and it gets them on the 25th or 26th time, or more.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of my career has been about sort of emulating how the professionals maintain such a high level of safety. And to spoil the entire story of what I've learned, it's essentially because the companies survive the crashes.
Really?
Yeah, it's the company. The company survives the crash and then creates procedures and they force compliance with those procedures. So like, if you're a professional operator, you don't have to think about it. It's either a go or it's a no-go. It's a hard line. It's either 5.5 miles or 5.4 miles viz or whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't have a choice. The reason you don't have a choice is because you don't know the last 80 years of history. You don't know how many people have done it right and done it wrong and done it whatever. And in our world, we're inventing the wheel every time we go out, you know? And so in your case, thank God you got that message, right? And you're smart enough to have learned from it.
Well, I don't know about that, but
well, it sounds like
that one.
It sounds like it, right? But how many times are we on the wrong side of that equation, getting away with murder but not realizing it? You know, there's really a lot to unpack there. And anyway, but that, yeah, I'm doing talks all week on that exact point, like standard operating procedures and how that contributes to a culture of safety.
So I want to ask you more about that, because that's really, I found that fascinating. One of the biggest differences that I've learned from you, from Brian Schiff, who wasn't able to make it to our show tonight, but obviously he is very here in spirit.
He is definitely here in spirit.
Okay in spirit. So
I bet he'd have funny stories. That's for sure.
Yes, no question. One of the interesting things about what we seem to be taught in general aviation and our mindset, and what professional pilots and what you teach, and I'd love to hear you expound about this, is we seem to be focused on a positive outcome. Our expectation is, like, if we're lined up, we're landing. Our expectation is if we're making an approach, we're going to make it. Our expectation is if we're taking off, this is at what point I'm going to raise the gear, and this is what point I'm going to turn on course.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, anytime I talk to you, to Brian, to other professional pilots, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
They are always expecting that it is not going to work out, that this is what's going to happen. When we don't break out, we're going to go around and do this.
Yeah.
When the engine quits on takeoff, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because I don't think that's a common general aviation mindset.
Yeah, no, it's maybe it's not. I mean, and that's part of it. But that's exactly how I was fortunate to have a really amazing mentor. You know, there was a single individual in my life who he's no longer alive, but really taught me, made me the pilot I am today. And that was our pre-takeoff briefing, just as you described it. He said, listen, you're gonna, you know, I'd have to say this. I'd have to literally verbalize this before every takeoff and touch everything that I was gonna do. But I'd say we're gonna add power for takeoff, we're gonna accelerate to rotation speed, you know, we're gonna rotate, and when the engine fails, here's what we're gonna do. If we get lucky and the engine doesn't fail, we're gonna climb to 500 feet, but when it fails at 500, here's what we're gonna do. If we get lucky and it doesn't fail at 500, we're gonna climb to 1,000, run a checklist, and decide if it's safe to keep going.
Yeah.
That was like, you know, every takeoff. And the more I live and the more I fly, the more I hear his voice in my head, and I realize that he had experiences. I mean, if he were here today, he could probably tell me experiences that justified every single thing we did, things that he had seen. Just a quick example was he would always make me say flap handle up, then check the flaps and say flaps coming up on touch and goes, right? So we're doing touch and goes, and I'd go power, and I'd say flap handle up, flaps coming up. And that was all because he'd been in an airplane where somebody put the flap handle up and the flaps just stayed right where they were.
Yeah.
You know, and each one of the things that he taught me, there was an experience like that. But it's even, you know, it's more than just that approach. Like, I'm thinking of a night where I actually got caught out in some pretty bad weather. I was doing an instrument flight, again, from the Bay Area up to Santa Rosa, but we've got a radar dark spot just south of the coast. Like south of Half Moon Bay, you can have the worst weather in the world coming in and you just don't see it on the radar until it's 20 miles out. I mean, it gets pretty darn close to shore before you can see it. And so when we were up in Santa Rosa and we turned around, by the time we turned around, there was some pretty significant weather. And I remember distinctly hearing a Southwest jet holding, a bunch of airliners were holding. They were switching the whole Bay Area around. So all the airliners were now gonna start landing to the east. And I heard a Southwest jet say, we have one more turn in this hold and then we have to go to our alternate. And I just found that so impressive, right? If you compare that to, like, there's a wonderful AOPA Air Safety Institute video called Final Approach. And if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. But it's about a GA pilot that keeps trying to get into this bad weather situation, right? He ends up running out of fuel. But this Southwest jet knew down to the turn in the hold when he had to go to the alternate, and there was no choice. He wasn't thinking about it. He was looking at numbers on a computer saying, well, that's the red line. Now, as soon as the number goes below this, I am bound by company procedure to go to my alternate. We don't have rules like that, you know.
Right.
And even when we do have rules like that, they're very, very difficult. I always say to GA pilots, no matter what your rules are, there's some amount of pressure that will cause you to break them. And I think it's important to be honest with ourselves about that, because then you can strategize, you can mitigate the risk in different ways, you know. Have an airline ticket on backup or whatever it is that helps you mitigate it. But there's some amount of pressure. I mean, I don't know, your wife's been in a tragic accident or whatever it is. There's some pressure where if there's not a boss above you saying, yeah, if you do that, you're fired, and your kids aren't going to college, and you're never getting another airline job, and you know, it's like, okay, I won't do it, you know. But in GA, we have to force that on ourselves.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
It makes a lot of sense, and I really do love and focus in on that idea of when instead of if, because the if is the hope, right? Which you had a wonderful instructor, you're a wonderful instructor.
Thanks.
I have not heard a lot of instructors in my life approach it that way. They usually, in my experience, has always been like, if. What are you going to do if this happens? It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I think the when makes all the difference. And I think one of the tips that you could do, if I were to change one thing about that night and that experience that I had that affects the rest of my life and the rest of my flying, it's that if I'm setting myself up even the littlest bit for something like that, it would be non-flying things that I could change. For example, looking up hotels and saying, hey, there's a good chance we're going to stay over. This is where we're going to stay.
Right.
Hey, here's a good place to eat.
Sure.
Hey, here's something that we can do. Because that's affecting my mindset at the beginning, where the exception now is we come home tonight. And in some ways, it's almost a disappointment, right? You go out to something, you have fun with friends, you see a good concert, you do whatever you're going to do, and then it's like, I guess we're just going to go back. But if it was all planned out, I wouldn't have been thinking in my head and stressing about that, you know, angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, about sitting there like, well, where on earth are we going to find a place to stay? Where on earth are we going to do this? It's, you know, all this stuff's going on. How am I going to disappoint these people? And yet we could have said from the very beginning, hey, pack a bag, because we're probably coming home tonight. But we may decide to stay over. There's a great place to stay, a good place to eat, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It would have made my decision less painful and helped save my life instead of me sort of considering myself lucky that I listened to my better self.
Yeah, 100%. That's a fantastic strategy. And I think as many of those things as you can add to the quiver, as many of those arrows as you have, one that I've been using, that I have some students that do this, they buy a Southwest ticket and they're fully refundable. So if you buy the right level of ticket, they just have this rolling Southwest ticket that they never use. They just keep canceling it and keep the funds on Southwest. But I've done that. I've borrowed that and executed on it. I mean, I go to Palm Springs quite often, and every now and again there's weather I don't want to fly through, and that Southwest ticket is, I just say to my wife, we're not canceling the trip, but we're not flying ourselves. We have tickets.
So I want to give you a maintenance example of that better thinking, and I'm gonna catch some grief for this because I'm gonna out my son. My younger son, Ben, who many of you, if you've watched any of our videos, you've seen him as part of our Mustang build. When he got his private and went for his check ride and was in the classic rented Cessna beat up whatever at the flight school kind of thing.
Yeah.
He goes out for his check ride, and as he's coming into the pattern, he pulls on the carb and the carb I don't recall whether it went on or didn't go on, but the cable came out a lot more than the cable's supposed to come out.
Oh gosh.
So he sort of, was out, whatever, say it's normally supposed to come out 2-3 inches, and it came out like 5 inches. And so he pushed it in a little bit. He goes in, he does the entire ground oral portion of his check ride, everything else. He's walking out, and he says, at that point, he didn't say it when he went in, which is probably okay, because he knew the guy would walk away and cancel.
Right.
Then instead, he goes out and he tells him, like, so I had this problem with the plane, and the carb heat now, and a bright sunny day, but whatever. Carb heat came out, and I think there might be something wrong with the carb heat cable. And And in his head, he was like, I don't want this check ride not to happen. I've waited forever. I'm all ready. Like, everything's ready. And then he said to the DPE that, you know, something's wrong with the carb heat cable. And the DP said, well, can we take the check ride? And he said back to him, he said, probably not. And he said, probably? He's like, well, he's like, what would you do? He's like, I guess we can't go, whatever. And the DPE reached over, grabbed the carb heat cable, pulled the entire cable out, the entire thing out of the sheath, you know, 6 feet long, threw it in the back of the plane and said, now we'll go.
Make the point, right? Let's make it obvious. That's really good. That's a tough call to make. I mean, those are hard. That's what, you know, those are hard situations. And there's nobody sitting over you saying you absolutely can't.
It is tough, and the problem, I think, is that we don't always have good real world role models, let's say,
right,
for that kind of thing. And in this particular case, I think it was also hard because mysteriously later that day, after I flew up and picked him up and took him home or whatever, the plane just showed back up at the rental fleet airport where the maintenance facility was, right?
Oh, wow.
So this sends a message to students.
Yeah.
When things like that happen.
For sure.
When you have a problem with an aircraft, when the aircraft is not airworthy, how many people have ever heard of cases happening where an aircraft that technically shouldn't be moving from point A to point B somehow miraculously winds up going from point A to point B because that's where the shop is? Was there a serious risk to doing something like that? Probably not. Was it legal? Absolutely not. Is it a good lesson for people to see, especially students? It's a terrible lesson.
Yeah, that's awful. And you never know. I mean, it's that one time, you know. It's that one time something can happen. Richard, my mentor, used to, if I got in any position in the traffic pattern where I couldn't glide to the runway, he would pull my power to idle and say, what are you going to do now? You know, and I'm just staring at the houses in East Oakland thinking, okay, point made. Can I have the engine back? You know, but he trained me such that I'm always in a position to glide to the runway. And tragically, 2 months ago, I had a brand new student flying up to my airport to come and train with me. We'd met on the ground, but we'd never flown together before. And he was flying a very, very low traffic pattern, had a total engine failure, resulted in a fatal accident. And it's that one time, you know, you're not always in a position to glide to the runway maybe, but you always have to fly with that defensive mindset.
Yeah.
That is am I going to get carb ice on the ferry flight? Probably not, but probably is not good enough.
Right. Yeah, and you can get in trouble. That's the reality too.
Yeah.
I had that DP seen that happen. No question.
Yeah.
No question. Why wouldn't you? It's the right thing, you know.
100%. Yeah, he would have failed the check ride if he said we're going.
Oh,
if Ben would have said that, he would have been a failure.
Right there, knowing, no, if he had seen a ferry happen right in front of him on a flight that he canceled because of that, because he'd be worried about his own ticket.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, this kind of stuff happens. We had a mechanic in Oakland that his maintenance shop was in San Carlos, and if there was any engine issues, he wanted us to ferry the plane over to San Carlos. Well, if you guys know the Bay Area, that means you're crossing the San Francisco Bay at like 800 feet. You're beyond power off gliding distance from shore, really, I mean, if we're honest. And I remember saying to him, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And he just said to me, if you don't feel comfortable flying my planes, don't fly my planes. That was the last time I flew his planes. But I mean, that's out there. That stuff's out there, yeah.
Literally, if you don't feel comfortable doing things the way I do it, don't.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he owned like 6 planes in the fleet, so it was hard to avoid him, but yeah.
Wow. What made you decide to be a flight instructor? I mean, you learned from this wonderful guy you've talked about.
Well, he was a big part of it, but I think people. Like, if you don't love being with people, you can't be a good flight instructor. And at the end of the day, it's as much a people job as it is a flying job. But I fly every day. I'm home with my kids every night. I'm home on the weekends at this point in my career. I design my own schedule, so there's like a certain amount of independence in it for me. but it's helping people learn. You know, if you love to teach, you love to teach.
It sounds like we're being like led off.
I know. I'll say that's like showtime at the Apollo. Are we done? Hey, before I don't say this, if anybody wants to be entered to win a free iPad, see me after our talk. We have an iPad giveaway that we're running all week. So
absolutely.
And I want to thank you, Jeff, for having me on a part of your SocialFlight.
I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, so how do people find you again for all these lessons and more?
LearnTheFinerPoints.com is where I am online. Yep, LearnTheFinerPoints.com, and yeah.
Excellent. And here at SocialFlight, we've got a whole slew of giveaways going on. This is not a cheat code for the giveaways. You don't get to just get them for attending this here. However, if you go to where you see the SocialFlight flags, which are all the sponsors that you see here on this sign, I'm going to be rotating between them. I'm going to be walking between those areas. And we've got little secret things as far as like what's someone's letter of their first name or the X number of person that I met that day. We are giving away some amazing stuff. We're giving away a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset.
Nice.
Very cool. And they also announced their Zulu 4 here at the show.
Cool.
Which is awesome. We're giving away a complete set of Michelin Pilot tires. How cool is that? Like oil filters, spark plugs. We've got swag giveaways. You name it. There's going to be all sorts of cool things. And so outside of this setting, follow me from a distance. And who knows, you might win something really awesome. I want to thank all of you for joining us here for this live SocialFlight.
The early birds.
For being part of the SocialFlight community. Thank you so much, and I wish you all blue skies. See you, everybody.
All right, thanks, Jeff.